in Western culture, we kind of have this like, oh, like we don't talk about money, right? Like money is kind of a private thing. And I feel like that's very different from a lot of communities around the world. And there's a lot of benefits, right? When people share resources.
Hi, we're here with Glen today, who's one of the co-founders of Tanda. Glen, can you introduce yourself and tell us what you do here at Tanda?
Sure. Like Allison said, my name is Glenn. I'm one of the co-founders, head of engineering at Tanda, just working on code all across our mobile and backend apps.
And a bit of a warm-up question because we asked Mike this too in his previous interview. What high school trend or fad were you a part of?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, something that was big was sort of the precursor to EDM, which was trance. And I got into producing trance music. I don't know if I'm embarrassed about it. I think it's kind of fun. Um, like the old man in the rocking chair, where it's like, oh, like I did EDM before there was EDM. So it wasn't even called EDM. I think it's funny how we rediscover things. It's like it was trance, it was house or whatever subgenre, and then it became EDM and dubstep and trap and like all these sort of things.
Yeah, it's interesting to kind of see the origins. And I guess speaking of origins, let's hear a bit more about your personal origin story. So, why did you decide to co found Tanda, and what sort of personal experiences led towards you caring about these main issues that Tanda tries to address?
Mhm. Yeah, so I done many startups in my career. I have a huge passion for doing startups. So that was one of the big decisions in co-founding Tanda. Uh, I spent a lot of time working in mobile games, and while that's a very different experience, I think the connection to people within the games is something you feel really strongly as a developer. Like people feel very passionate about games. Building community is a big piece of that. And when I think about personal finances, I have family that struggle with personal finances, and people I know, and it's the idea of taking a game like game mechanics, gamifying, and then bringing the community aspect to it, and how you can help people with their finances is very meaningful. And then like specifically to Tanda, it's like they're known as Hui in Chinese, and my mom was actually part of one when she was working back in Taiwan in her first job.
Yeah, my my grandfather have also been part of Hawaii before too, so it's something that was really familiar to me as well.
Yeah, super common in Asia.
It is very common, and you hear a lot about tandas or hues or whatever the term is across multiple cultures. And I think it's always really interesting to see that everyone kind of has their own version of a tanda, and a lot of families are kind of familiar with this concept, which is really great.
Yeah, I agree, and it is like feel like in Western culture we kind of have this like, oh, like we don't talk about money, right? Like money is kind of a private thing, and I feel like that's very different from a lot of communities around the world. And there's a lot of benefits, right, when people share resources. I think there's a chance to share tips about how to save, how to become more financially well that we're really missing out on in the West.
I guess speaking specifically about your role at Tanda, what's something really interesting that you've worked on lately?
Yeah, so it's going to be more on the technical side, obviously. The feature that we recently launched, Tanda Balance, is something that I did most of the coding for. We're pretty excited about that in the sense that it helps people kind of separate out their money a little bit. I think what we've heard from some of our customers is if the money is just automatically getting pulled out and going back to my bank, it doesn't feel like you're kind of helping me save, right? It just kind of shows up back in my account. And so by moving into Tanda Balance, we're hoping people are a lot more intentional about that feeling of, oh, I got the balance, it's here, it's a separate amount of money that's kind of like you've you've hid from me in a way so that it's kind of emergency fund that's ready to go.
And I guess, how do you personally use Tanda in your day to day?
Yeah, I really like the community aspect of it. If you've seen some of the posts I've done, it's about baby stuff because my wife and I had twins earlier this year, so it's been kind of crazy. And so just saving up money for purchases of formula, diapers, all those things.
How do you sort of hope to see people using Tanda in the future, given how you see people using it now and how you also currently use it?
Yeah, I really hope people use it to save money to make the purchases they need. I
Mhm.
think we're talking a lot about how we want to evolve Tonda in the future and really focus on the saving aspect of it. And I think that's really great because when I think of other solutions out there, right? Like buy now, pay later. So these sort of Affirm and Afterpays of the world. It's a lot. It's about like consumption now, right? It's like I may not have saved for it, but I can buy it now and then pay over time. And I think when we want to set up people for responsible buying, where they, it's kind of guilt free. I think of the save now, splash later, as Jesse calls it, or I like to call it save now, buy later, right? And so I am making a conscious choice to save towards a goal, and when I buy that thing that I need or want, I'm not putting myself into further debt, right? So I think it's a great way to learn good financial habits.
And finally, what is your favorite personal savings tip?
That's a tough one. I mean, I guess this is really a practical one. I've seen a lot of people spend a lot of money on their phone bills, and actually, there's a ton of services out there that you can prepay for a year or 6 months commitment period and get a much reduced phone bill. And I think if people would take advantage of that, they could probably unlock a good chunk of savings for themselves.
How much do people generally save, like percentage wise?
It depends. I mean, I'd say I see a lot of people paying $60 plus for some sort of unlimited plan. They easily can get plans under $30 that will give them the same amount of coverage by prepaying 3 months, 6 months, a year. I think a lot of people just default to the sort of like big carriers, right, in their plans. But there's like this whole, they're called MVNOs, mobile virtual network operators, that operate on these big networks, but have their own packaging and their own customer support. And they can often give you better pricing and better service. It's worth it to investigate those things because I think those monthly subscriptions and bills are what really get you in the long term. So I think when you just saving a couple of bucks every month really adds up over time.
Awesome. That was a really good tip. Thank you. I think that's all we have for today. We really appreciate kind of getting to know you, introducing you to the Tonda community. And yeah, thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.